Hey friends, Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. Today we're test driving the 2014 Ford CMax Hybrid. This is Ford's first dedicated hybrid vehicle, and it competes chiefly to the Toyota Prius V, which is their larger version of the Toyota Prius. Although the two vehicles are still a little bit different in size and shape, they're the closest two things to compare out there in the market. Now, this vehicle does have a bit of a story. The Ford Escape Hybrid was quite popular for a while, their compact SUV, but a couple years ago when they redesigned the Escape, they said they weren't going to be offering that in a hybrid anymore. There were a lot of people disappointed as that vehicle did have a following. So what they did is they introduced the CMax. Now this vehicle shares a lot of its architecture with the Escape, but the big difference is it sits a little bit lower to the ground, a little bit less SUV-like, but from behind the wheel, it still has that high seating position. The other thing that really has been noted out there about this vehicle is Ford has had to lower the MPG ratings on this twice since the vehicle was introduced. When it first came out, it was 47 MPG combined. Last year they had to lower it down to 43 MPG combined after a lot of customers were sort of giving them the business, so to speak. And just last spring they had to lower it again down to 40 MPG after they discovered some problems in their testing procedures. So that's been a little bit of bad PR surrounding this vehicle. So my question today is, as we test drive it, does it still offer a credible vehicle in the marketplace against the Toyota Prius?
A model also sold in other continents, the Ford CMax has a decidedly European flavor in its design. Fitting into the Ford family between the Focus and the Escape crossover, it shares the styling DNA that's been popular for all three. As a hybrid-only model, its low stance has form-following function to make it more aerodynamic and therefore more fuel-efficient. As a hybrid or plug-in hybrid in the energy trim grade, it doesn't scream to the world how different it is from the pack. Inside, our base model SC had cloth seating that felt sturdy and looked very businesslike. The material was breathable even in our Arizona heat. The seats were manually adjusted up front on both sides and provided a firm feel. The shift lever and steering wheel are wrapped in leather for a nice grip. A myriad of controls are provided on the steering wheel for the sync features as well as the dual screen information menus on the instrument cluster. The dash spans far out in front of you, giving you an innate sense of space. Our tester was optioned with the 203A package, which included My Ford Touch, Sirius satellite radio, and navigation. There was also a power liftgate and the reverse sensing system. What I found oddly missing from this package was a backup camera. Most automakers, when they put in a large screen infotainment system, the extra $30 for a rear camera at that point's almost a given. It's a feature that might have been nice given some of this vehicle's blind spots.
Well, as you can see, the rear seat of the CMax is indeed a compact vehicle rear seat. It does have plenty of headroom, and the legroom, well, I call it adequate. These seats are actually up quite a bit. If they were all the way back, it would be just a little tighter. Now also, because this isn't an SUV in terms of its format, the seat does sit down a little bit lower. My knees are up here just a tad. The good news is these are nice tall doors, and as you saw, I was able to get in here without scraping my hat on the roof, and that's a good thing.
Being an MPV, there's plenty of storage throughout. This includes some handy compartments under the floor mats of the second row for smaller items, a large center console bin, and a sizable glove box. In the rear cargo hold, there's also a hidden storage area. Back here, the load floor is a bit high to make room for the hybrid battery, but affords a completely flat cargo hold with the 60-40 split rear seats folded down. There's 24.6 cubic feet behind that second row and up to 52.6 cubic feet when they're folded.
I really have to hand it to Ford for truly upgrading the fit and finish as well as the quality of their interiors. You reach around here and start getting your hands on the materials. There's a lot of soft touch materials, and where they meet the regular hard plastics, the seams are very tight, and the fit and finish just really seems to be well and above what their product used to offer. Now we've got some technologies in here like this instrument cluster, which has this great coaching tool with the leaves. When you drive nice and easy and friendly, the leaves grow. When you start being bad, well, your leaves die off. And so it's just kind of a cute way to coach you along. And on the other side of the instrument cluster, you have a number of different menus you can choose that help you watch what your fuel economy is doing, and it's actually quite helpful. They've really done a good job with that. Now, the My Ford Touch up here that this vehicle has, you know, I've complained about it many times before, and they have improved it just a little bit this year with adding some additional hard controls up here that allow you to do those things that you do very often just with a knob and a couple of buttons rather than having to page through all the menus, and that's a good thing. In this particular vehicle, what is difficult though is this touchscreen is actually set inside this bowl here, so when you go to use some of these buttons, you have to sort of brace your hand here to be able to navigate down there on that lower bar. And so that's an area that I think that really still could use some improvement in this vehicle. Overall though, if you compare this to a Prius V, this has a somewhat traditional layout. You have a standard gear shift knob instead of the little joystick, and everything is laid out in a more, well, American sense. Even though it is sort of a European design, it's still very traditional inside.
Under the hood is Ford's first in-house designed and engineered hybrid drive system built around a 2-liter Atkinson cycle 4-cylinder engine and an electric motor. Driven through a constantly variable transmission, it offers a total system 188 horsepower.
I have to hand it to Ford, this powertrain is actually pretty refined for a hybrid. So many hybrids, you get behind the wheel of them and you feel like it's some kind of karma, like it's some kind of punishment for being a human being. You've been out there plundering the world all these years and creating bad problems for the environment. So you finally get yourself a green car and now you've got to be punished with something that's rude and crude, unrefined. That isn't going on here. This thing cycles from its power transitions quite seamlessly. When the engine starts and stops, it doesn't shudder through the car. You do hear the transitions, but they're not rough and noisy in terms of something you feel through the car. So that's actually a very good thing.
It provides generous power when you need it from both the gasoline engine and the electric motor combined. The newest EPA rating for the 2014 Ford CMax is 42 mpg city, 37 mpg highway, and a total combined rating of 40 mpg.
The ride and driving experience is very similar to that of a Ford Focus or a Ford Escape. In fact, it ought to be, since it's really right in between those two vehicles in terms of height. And so what that gives you is steering that's pretty responsive on curvy roads. It's got a pretty firm ride that gives a sporting character that's, well, it's a little above and beyond what you'd expect from most hybrids.
The 2014 Ford CMax Hybrid is rated by the IIHS as a top safety pick as it achieved good on all tests and an acceptable rating on the new small overlap front crash. As the CMax doesn't offer a crash prevention system yet, it's not eligible for the top safety pick plus status.
Well, how did we do? This week we achieved 43 mpg combined, a little bit of city, a little bit of highway. And as you can see, that is slightly more than what the EPA does rate this vehicle at. Now, how does that compare to the Prius V? Well, Prius V is rated at 42, which is higher than this. We haven't tested the Prius V this year, so I don't have any immediate numbers on what you can actually achieve or what I would have doing the same driving cycle. That said, how this does compare to the Prius V in terms of the overall experience. This has more horsepower. I find it more fun to drive. Handling is also a little bit more sporting. The Prius V does have a little bit more room back here and with the seat folded down than the CMax does. So it really just depends on what it is you're looking for in a vehicle. If maximum cargo space is it, well, you know, the Prius V might just be your better choice. But if you like a vehicle to actually be a little bit fun to drive, this really does deserve a look. In terms of how we score it this week, as you can see, we came up 4 stars in most categories. The only area where I wasn't quite up to that point was value, and the only reason being is I thought for the price tag it was missing just a few features, like that backup camera. So it still achieved 4 stars this week. I'm Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. I hope you enjoyed the ride.